Do you like damage? What about being really tanky and having enemies kill themselves from attacking you? Hey guys, I'm Ronan. Welcome back to the channel. Today is all about Paladin, talking pure Paladin. I have some Paladin builds I'm working on, mainly because I had a comment stating I don't have a lot of Paladin builds, so I wanted to make some new ones for you guys. Today is a pure Paladin build that you can use for any subclass, whether you are an Oathbreaker, Ancient, Devotion, or Vengeance Paladin. You can utilize what we talk about in today's video for any of them. I showcase it as an Oathbreaker because it's my favorite subclass for the Paladin itself, but feel free to use any subclass that you want. This build is very tanky, has a lot of high damage potential, and the best part about it, you can utilize it pretty much from the start of the game. All the gear we talk about is mainly from Acts 1 and 2, though there are some minor upgrades you get inside Act 3. When I state this build is tanky, trust me, you are going to live. You're going to do a lot of damage, and if you do the Oathbreaker route, especially in Act 2, you have some very useful utility. Let's go ahead and break the video down. If you guys would like to be a member like Suicide Squash here, please hit join down below. You'll get early access to my videos, additional perks for my live streams, and some fun things coming in the future. Suicide Squash, thank you for being a member. I really appreciate you. For this build, we are going with some weird looking stats. I know we'll talk about why these stats are the way they are once we get the feats, because they will be changed when we do have feats later on. For now, just know if you do want a little bit of higher initiative, you may want to put some points in dexterity instead of putting points elsewhere. Skill proficiency wise, go ahead and pick whatever you wish. I do find intimidation and persuasion to be really useful because I like having this character be the face of my party. And as a paladin, you do actually have a fighting style you can choose from. I know a lot of people go great weapon fighting, and it is very powerful, don't get me wrong, but with the way I play this playstyle, I like going sword and board, so I went dueling. That way my one-handed melee attacks will do additional 2 damage, and I can still carry a shield in my offhand for extra AC, and some significant bonuses we'll talk about in a bit. There are going to be 3 feats you can utilize as this build. Disclaimer: the 3rd feat is optional. If you would prefer to get your last level into Draconic Sorcerer, for example, for Armor of Agathis, in order to have even more Ice Retaliation, you can. If you would like to put it in War Priest to get the extra attacks to be even more like frontal damage, you can do that as well. Or you can stay pure Paladin and get Savage Attacker, which will re-roll all the damage dice you do. This counts for Divine Smite, and your melee attacks will all be re-rolled to do the highest damage possible. So your first feat will be Heavy Armor Master. This is nice because you will be wearing heavy armor as this build. This will get your strength to 18. Combine that with the strength potion you get in Act 2 and you are at 20 strength. This is nice because this will stack with gear you get later on to make you very tanky, reducing all physical damage by 5. Resilient is the 2nd feat here, and we are going Constitution. That way we can get our Constitution to 14. This will also give us proficiency, meaning when we cast a concentration spell like Bless, for example, it will be significantly harder to break. The concept of this build is to either do a debuff playstyle to give radiating orbs on enemies while doing good damage and having enemies take damage from retaliation, or to go pure damage, strictly just one hand sword and board and really blow up your enemies. Either way works. It's really going to be player choice on how you want to play it. As an Oathbreaker Paladin, you have access to exclusive abilities and spells other Paladins normally do not have. Starting out, you have one of your first channel Oath abilities, Spiteful Suffering. This does necrotic damage every turn to the enemy and will do additional necrotic damage equal to your Charisma modifier. What's important to note here, however, is enemies affected by this will actually have a debuff. The debuff will allow you and your allies to have advantage on attack rolls against them. This is nice for honor mode because enemies have really high AC, and this is a great way to ensure you and your allies will land your hits. In Act 2, Control Undead is very useful, somewhat useful for Act 3, but really shines in Act 2. There are a handful of undead enemies that you can control and make an ally, which is really nice to not only just have an extra body to take hits, but the extra damage never hurts. Dreadful Aspect is very useful. It's another channel Oath ability. This one is nice because it lets you frighten nearby enemies in a 30-foot radius, and enemies that are frightened have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls, and they cannot move. which is a pseudo way to CC melee attackers. You have access to Hellish Rebuke, which is a reaction ability. Normally when you take damage, you can use your reaction to then attack with Hellish Rebuke. I only use this sometimes because I find using Divine Smite would do a little bit more damage, but this does have some uses when needed. You have Inflict Wounds, a very powerful necromancy spell. This is nice because this is a melee spell. Crown of Madness, an enchantment spell. This is nice because it is a spell to essentially kind of like pseudo CC humanoid enemies, making them attack their allies. Has some uses, but not always. Another very powerful spell is going to be Darkness. Everyone by now should know how powerful this is, but essentially blinding enemies is really significant, especially if they are rangers or some type of ranged caster. It's a great way to force them to come to you. As an Oathbreaker Paladin, your exclusive aura is Aura of Hate. This is equal to your charisma modifier. This will increase melee damage for weapons by 3 since I have 16 charisma as this build. It states it affects fiends and undead, but it only affects fiends and undead that have melee weapons. Unfortunately, the undead that you can control or summon as this build do not have melee weapons, so it will not affect them. Of course, you do have Animate Dead, a necromancy spell to have some undead follow you around to help attack. And the final exclusive ability is going to be Bestow Curse. And for those that are having difficulty breaking your oath in Act 3, I do want to showcase right here in Rivington, you can simply attack one of the refugees. You can see I have a debuff here, my oath is broken. So now all I gotta do is run away. So come over here, use Misty Step to go out even further. And now I can flee combat with no issues. Because we took Heavy Armor Master to help reduce the damage we take, we would like to stack that with Heavy Armor. The earliest Heavy Armor in my opinion you should utilize is going to be the Adamantine Splint Armor. This will reduce all incoming damage by 2. This does stack with Heavy Armor Master, so any type of physical damage would be reduced by 5. You can't be crit while wearing this. And enemies are sent reeling for 3 turns when they are attacked. This is one of the best chest pieces you can get in the game, and it's one you can get really early because it comes from the Grimforge. Alternatively, if you did save the Tieflings, another fantastic chest piece to utilize is going to be the Flawed Helldusk Armor. Note this chest piece isn't as strong as the other chest pieces, however it is still nice to have, and it's something you can get pretty much for free in game. Of course, once you get to Act 3, you have Reaper's Embrace, another really powerful armor chest piece, and it looks really nice for an Oathbreaker. Naturally, you have the Armor of Persistence that you get from Daemon in Act 3 if you did save the Tieflings. This chest piece breaks the game and makes you super tanky since you gain resistance and blade board at all times. And of course, you have the Helldusk Armor in general, another really powerful chest piece. Another great combo that you can get pretty early in the game is going to be Blood of Lathander in combination with the Luminous Gloves, the Kalos Glow Ring as well. This will ensure, because the Blood of Lathander will always shed light in a 20-foot radius, enemies will always be illuminated. So every time you do damage, you will apply the Kalos Glow Ring effect, doing additional 2 points of radiating damage, which will always proc the Luminous Gloves, significantly reducing the chance for the enemies to hit since radiating orbs are a stacking debuff to their attack rolls. If you prefer to be a little bit more on the damage dealing side, however, you can instead use some type of gloves that increase melee weapon damage. This would include the Helldusk Gloves, which will do additional 1d6 fire, gives you Ray of Fire cantrip, and +1 bonus to spell attack rolls and spell save DC. You get those in Act 3. In Act 2, you get the Flawed Helldusk Gloves, 1d4 fire damage. You also have the Dark Justiciar's Gauntlets, 1d4 necrotic damage. One of my favorite cape and helm combos will be the Flesh Melter's Cloak. Whenever you are hit with melee damage, they take 1d4 acid. You already take 5 less damage from melee attacks, so the chances are that damage they do will be very little, and you will always retaliate for acid damage. Combine that with the Holy Lance Helm. Whenever the attacker misses, they have to make a dex saving throw, or they take 1d4 radiant damage. So no matter what, whether you are hit in combat or if they miss their attacks, they have a chance to take damage, which is pretty nice since you are pretty tanky as this build regardless. Some alternatives: instead of the Holy Lance helm, if you would like to be a little bit more offensive, you have the Grimskull helm that you get inside the Grim Forge. Cannot be crit, you gain resistance to fire damage, and you have Hunter's Mark you can use, which is really nice just to add a little bit of extra piercing damage to enemies you're trying to kill ASAP. If you would like just raw damage, the Diadem of Arcane Synergy is really nice. Arcane Synergy is a buff to melee attacks equal to your casting modifier. With 16 charisma, this would equal 3 extra damage for all our attacks when using melee weapons. Boots, use whatever you would like. Neck piece, use whatever you would like, but I do want to give a shout out to the Amulet of Misty Step. Having Misty Step you can use once per short rest for free is pretty nice as a melee build. The other ring I would recommend is going to be the Strange Conduit Ring. While concentrating on a spell, your weapon attacks deal additional 1d4 psychic damage. And because we are a paladin, one of these spells I would like to use is going to be Divine Favor. Your weapon attacks deal additional 1d4 radiant damage. This combination will ensure that all of our melee attacks will do even more damage at all times. My shield and bow choice here is going to be the Sentinel Shield for the extra initiative here, which is nice because I have low dexterity. Combine that with the Hellrider Longbow and you have +6 initiative at all times as this build. Of course, you can utilize other shields. Another shout out, the Ketheric Shield is pretty nice to have. Or if you want even more tankiness and retaliation, the Absolute's Protector is really nice because you can cast Fire Shield Chill. So whenever you are hit in melee damage, you will retaliate from your cloak and do cold damage from your shield. Alternatively, if you don't want to use Blood of Lathander, feel free to use whatever one-hander you would like. I do want to give a shout out to the Torch of Revocation here. This will do additional 1d4 necrotic, 1d4 fire, have a chance to burn the enemy as well. And if you use this with some of the tricks I'll talk about soon, you will have a significant way to increase your damage even more. One useful tip that you can do to increase your damage even more is to equip the Drakethroat Glaive that you buy from Roa Moonglow in Act 2 and use the Draconic Elemental Weapon on the weapon you want to buff. So let's go ahead and add lightning damage to Blood of Lathander. You can now see that when I attack in melee, I have 1d4 additional lightning, plus the 1d8 radiant damage for improved divine smite that you get at level 11 paladin at all times. But the Blood of Lathander also has another weapon enchant, so it has a +4 enchant, making this really hard not to hit the enemy. Some spells I do find to be particularly useful for this build would include the following. If you need a Bless bot, you could definitely have Bless because this is a concentration spell. You will do additional damage with your Conduit Ring. Of course, Divine Favor to give yourself additional 1d4 radiant damage on your attacks. This is a concentration spell, so it will also stack with the Conduit Ring. Heroism is okay, not the best, but it can be useful to help a friend in a pinch. Command is very useful, has tons of different ways to utilize this. Shout out to Blinding Smite, a very powerful spell, but it is a level 3 spell slot. And of course, if you prefer to buff your allies with damage, you can use Crusader's Mantles as well, doing 1d4 radiant damage for all weapon attacks for all nearby allies and yourself. I'm going to showcase two different forms of combat here, one with the extra tankiness and retaliation version, and then another one with the more bursty version. So to showcase, I am using the Luminous Gloves, Holy Lance Helm, Fleshmelter's Cloak, the rings we talked about, and all that fun stuff. So what I'm going to do to start out here, I'm going to use my Fire Shield Chill. I'm going to use my spell in order to get the extra holy damage. Alright, let's go ahead and open up in combat here against the enemy in front of us. And I am going to crit just to showcase the extra damage I can do. And I could retaliate, and I'm gonna go ahead and use Hellish Rebuke rank 2 on him just to get some extra damage in for free. And you can see that the 2 radiant orbs like radiant damage, I should say, came from my Cloudless Glow Ring. And look at all the extra damage these guys are taking just from attacking me. Alright, so I'm at 74 HP. This guy is already at half from attacking me. This guy is at half from attacking me as well. So if you take a look at what happened with my crit here coming up, I did a lot of damage to that first enemy here. Yeah, so I had the 24 bludgeoning, 7 lightning, the 8 psychic, the 28 radiating damage, and that's just from improved divine smite, plus the 48 right here, the 48 radiant damage as well. And if you take a look at my reactions here, that was because I automatically used a divine smite just to get the extra bursty damage without a reaction. Always make sure you guys have this asking though. You don't want to waste spell slots if you don't have to. So that was a lot of damage, and already these guys like took a lot of damage just from attacking me. So on my turn now, I could choose to basically resurrect someone, which I think would be pretty useful if I want a free zombie. Because I did use the Dance Macabre book, the Necromancy of Thay in Act 1 and in Act 3, I could summon a bunch of zombies if I wanted to. I don't think it's needed for this fight though. So instead, let's go ahead and try to fear everyone. I could fear these guys, meaning they can't move. You can see he's frightened, frightened, frightened. Unfortunately, did not hit that target there. So on my next turn now, I have some choices that I want to make because I do have a bonus action still. So for my bonus action, let's go ahead and use Howl of the Dead. Try to get these guys as well. So he's numbed with the numb debuff. You can see movement is halved, and the spellcaster has advantage on attack rolls, which is really nice. So when I go to attack them, my chance to crit and hit will be even higher. Look at all that extra damage he's taking from attacking me. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't affect the guy in the back. He missed, took damage from my helm. He is literally killing himself just from attacking me. All right, now that is my turn, let's go ahead. I could either heal myself with Lay on Hands, which I think would be pretty useful. So let's go ahead and get greater healings just to get my HP back up. Basically at full HP again. And now let's go ahead and attack one of the enemies here. We're going to attack this one in front of us since we have advantage. And you can see I did 20 damage, 10 radiant, 4 lightning. He has irradiating orbs. Let's just do 1 divine smite and he's gone. We're going to go ahead and attack this target in front of us here. That person's gone as well. I did not even need to use divine smite. I still have a bonus action. So for my final bonus action, I could choose to do anything I wanted. I don't think I really need to do anything right now. He's still frightened. This guy is the issue though. So what we're going to do is jump over to him. And we'll end our turn here. So this guy, we're going to go ahead and retaliate. I am going to use a level 3 spell on him. Alright, and the reason that went away is my potion ran out. But you can see these guys just keep dying from attacking me, and I'm still very tanky. Oh, he crit me, but it only did 8 damage. Alright, so let's go ahead and catch up to this guy and just take him out now, shall we? And he's gone. And that's basically how you play the retaliation version of this. I do all that extra damage from them attacking me, extra damage from the Flesh Melter's cloak, and if they missed a Holy Lance helm. But what if I want more damage on my turn and not so much from them attacking me? So let's take a look at that instead. Now for this showcase, I'm going to showcase this a little differently. So we are having some different weapons and armor now. We're having the Diadem of Arcane Synergy just to give us extra pretty much melee damage at all times. I am using the Hell Dusk gloves here for the extra fire damage, but feel free to use the Flawed Hell Dusk or Dark Justicier's Gauntlets instead until you get those. I'm going with the Torch of Revocation here, a really powerful weapon. 1d4 acid, 1d4 necrotic, 1d4 fire, and a chance to apply burning. Really useful, and I did use a Drigthroat's Glaive on this. You could also instead use the Alluve if you did want to debuff the enemies, which is another really solid weapon to have. This is really useful with the debuff set as well, because the extra thunder damage this does will be applied from everything else that you do. So to open up, it's going to be pretty much the same as before. We're going to go ahead and use Divine Favor. Get our speed potion going, and we're going to open up on the target in front of us. I'm going to auto critter. You can see that was a lot of damage. So this was without using Divine Smite. You had your 18 bludgeoning, your 8 acid, 6 necrotic, 16 fire, 7 psychic, and 17 radiant damage. And I do want to point out, you can see how it says reroll, reroll, reroll. Because we took Savage Attacker, all the extra damage we do ends up getting re-rolled, which is really nice. Let's go ahead and open up on the target in front of us now. So that was already a good amount of damage. Let's go ahead and use a rank 2 Divine Smite. And you can see the Divine Smite here will also get re-rolled from Savage Attacker as well. So they're gone. Let's go ahead and attack this target here. Go ahead and go with rank 2. Also gone. I do a lot of extra damage with this build. I'm going to come up here and try to use Howl of the Dead. I was hoping to get both of them. Looks like I'm only going to have a chance to get one. They're numbed, so on my next turn, I will have advantage. Let's go ahead and retaliate on that guy back there using a rank 2 Hellish Rebuke. And you can see he's still taking a good amount of damage from my cloak. So if I did want to utilize the other shield for the extra cold damage, it is still very useful as this version as well. All right, so now that it's my turn, I want to go ahead and at least get one of these targets out of here. I could use Spiteful Suffering. Let's use it on this target here. So he will take damage on his turns, plus I will have advantage, and he'll end up basically dying on my next turn regardless. Let's go ahead and just wipe him out now, shall we? So he's gone, didn't even need to use anything, and we will attack this target in front of us. He's gone. And that's pretty much how you play the build, guys. You just do a lot of damage from melee attacks. You're very tanky. There's a lot of really great things you can do with this build. If you wanted to utilize some different gear, like a two-hander for Great Weapon Master and things like that, you certainly can. The only difference with that build versus this one is you do sacrifice a little bit of AC and bonuses that you get from shields, which may or may not be worth it. The two-handed version does hit really hard regardless, so pick and choose what you would like. I just like using Sword and Board because I do like using the Blood of Lathander, and it's nice to have it on someone in melee range. I'm Ronan. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. Comment down below what you want to see next, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.